astronauts?
For any astronauts, whether you are a pilot or a flight engineer or a payload expert, you must experience the liftoff and also the landing. So this is the most crucial environment the astronaut must facing. So their training, including their the G load or the overload training, and also the vibration training, adaptation, and also they must conduct the rescue training. That's in an emergency case, the Shenzhou spaceship can land it anywhere, maybe a desert, maybe in the lake, or even in the sea. So they must be trained to, they can survive before the reach of the rescue team. So this is a very crucial and very tough training for the astronaut, no matter what role you are. So these astronauts, in the future, I believe also for the foreign astronauts, if in the future we plans to send them to our space station, they must also conduct these kind of trainings. Moreover, you see, a certain mission will be faced by certain kind of trainings. For instance, if they want to conduct the EVA, they must be trained in the water buoyancy pool or the underwater training. This is also really challenging for everyone. That it is even more tough than in the real microgravity environment if you are in the neutral buoyancy pool. So that is the reason why for all these astronauts, no matter he is a pilot or a payload expert, it is really challenging among these trainings.
How much time are we talking about here? How much time does it often take to groom a potential astronaut before he can be first a backup astronaut and then be selected on a real manned mission?
Usually, they should have a course of about 2 years. But for the certain missions, they will also be specially trained, and the enhanced training will be conducted. And also, finally, a formal crew and also a backup crew will be chosen. If anything wrong happens, for instance, such as
T minus 15 minutes.
Great. So at this moment, you can see that all the rotational platform has already been opened. We can see the whole body of our Long March 2F.
Let's take this opportunity, Professor, and talk about that.
2 minutes countdown.
That Long March 2F rocket obviously consists of different parts. We have 4 boosters at the bottom of the rocket, and then we have the stage 1 and stage 2, and then the spacecraft.
Quite correct. The Long March 2F is a 2.5-stage rocket dedicated for launch payload into the low Earth orbit. The capability, if there are 2 versions of this Long March 2F, one for crewed missions and one for unmanned missions. For the crewed missions, the capability is more than 8.9 tons. And for unmanned missions, the capability is more than 8.6 tons. Because you know that for a crewed mission, we must have an emergency escape system. The shape is different. And for this, as I mentioned, this Long March 2F is the only human-rated launch vehicle of China, which means that the reliability of this launch vehicle is much higher than a common launch vehicle. The rudiment of this launch vehicle is Long March 2E. The maiden flight is in 1990. But after the establishment of our manned space program, there are so many improvements on the Long March 2E, and finally we get this Long March 2F. At the initial stage, the reliability of this launch vehicle can reach to 0.97. It is already very high, but still not safe enough for our astronauts. We added a malfunction detection system on board this Long March 2F rocket. 0.97, the reliability means that for every 100 launch, maybe there are 3 times the rocket have some dangerous things happen. But you know that this is not safe enough for the astronauts. And then we added an emergency escape system to this launch vehicle. And with the help of this emergency escape system, the safety for the astronauts can reach to 0.997, which means for 1,000 launch, only 3 times, maybe the life of our astronauts will be threatened. So this is already safe enough. But still, for all these years, we have so many improvements on this launch vehicle, and the performance of this launch vehicle is also improved. The safety of this launch vehicle is also greatly improved. Moreover, you see that the launch of the Long March 2F is to send the Shenzhou spacecraft to dock with Tiangong space station. The basic requirement why we choose this moment to launch the rocket is because that only when the launch site rotates along with the Earth, when it passes through the orbital plane of our Tiangong space station, only at this moment we can launch it. The basic requirement is that the launch vehicle must send the spacecraft into the same orbital plane of our Tiangong. So that is the reason why we choose a zero launch window. The accuracy of the liftoff moment must be less than 1 second. So this is the initial stage in about 2011 during the Shenzhou 8 mission. They achieved this zero launch window. But in all these years, it is also continually improved because you know that we have some design margin, which means that the capability of the launch vehicle is stronger than required. So with this margin, we return the zero launch window to a natural launch window, which means if there are anything error happened, we can use this capability to adjust, and then it can reach to the proper position and speed. So this is also an important improvement.
Understood, Professor. Thank you. I'll be back with you. The Long March 2F rocket is China's only launch vehicle for manned space missions. Compared with other rockets, Long March 2F has an additional escape tower. As Professor Yang was just explaining, it's also known as the astronaut's life tower. CCTV's Wu Lei talked with the chief designer of the escape tower engine, and he has this report.
The safety of astronauts is the most important aspect of all manned missions. But what if the rocket fails during its flight period? Chinese scientists have developed an escape tower which is installed at the top of the rocket. In case of an emergency, its own engines will kick in and drag the spaceship away from danger. We are now at one of the assembly buildings at Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center. This is a real escape tower now standing by for the Long March 2F Y-16 rocket. It's only the main part, but the total length of this escape tower is over 8 meters. Shi Hongbin has been developing the escape tower engine system for over 20 years. He says China started to develop the escape tower back in 1992. After years of research and hundreds of ground tests, Chinese scientists conducted a comprehensive successful test launch of the escape tower and the rocket in 1998.
The escape tower starts working at an altitude of 0 to 39 kilometers and between 0 to 120 seconds after the launch. It has a main escape engine, a separate engine, and 4 engines in a control system. So the entire escape tower has 6 engines.
The current escape tower has been quite stable over the past 20 years, as China is developing its next generation rockets for manned lunar missions. More advanced escape towers also on the way.
We are now upgrading the escape tower. The new tower will be stronger as the new spaceship is larger. So we will use a variable thrust engine to make the escape system more reliable and safe.
China sent its first astronaut Yang Liwei into space in 2003, and since then, Shi Hongbin and his team have been in Jiuquan, helping guarantee the life support system of astronauts during each manned mission.
It is a matter of astronauts' life during the mission. It's better if they don't ever need to use our escape tower, but if they do, they will get the service of the highest standard.
China's space station will be fully complete by the end of 2022, and will host more astronauts, scientists, and engineers. The escape tower will continuously play a key role in manned space missions and deep space exploration. Wu Lei, CGTN, Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center.
We're now about 8 minutes until liftoff. I'm now joined in the studio by Professor Yang Yuguang. Professor, talk to us about what's happening in those last minutes. Just now, we saw some minibuses pull over, so the evacuation of ground staff obviously happened already.
You may notice, although all the rotational platform has already been opened, but still there are some arms, some arms in orange color, very close to the launch vehicle. In these arms, we have cables and pipes So still we have, as Yan-Song has already mentioned, we have the electricity provided from the launch complex to the spacecraft, and only about 1 to 2 minutes before the launch, before liftoff, we will switch the power supply from the ground to the batteries inside. So only at this moment we can unplug all these connections, and also that our Long March 2F launch vehicle adopted a parabolic propulsion system, which means that it is in common temperature. Actually speaking, it is UDMH, unsymmetrical dimethyl hydrazine, and also this as a fuel, and also nitrogen tetroxide as the oxidizer. This is very convenient for use because it is in common temperature. Oh, we can see the camera inside the re-entry capsule. We can see the 3 astronauts.
They've been waiting inside the cabin for over an hour.
Yes, it's already near the T-minus 5 minutes and counting.
They do seem very ready, very calm until that happens.
So you can see, as I've already mentioned, their seats are specially designed, and with this shape of the seats, they can afford a very great impact. And also, this will be the most comfortable position during the liftoff and the landing.
Because after all, they're going to be there literally for hours, between the waiting time and then the liftoff and the docking and the rendezvous.
The waiting time is not a big deal, but that during the 10 minutes of the liftoff and also during the landing, there will be G forces about 3 to 4 times greater than our ordinary gravity. So that will be a great challenge, not very comfortable for them. And also, during this process, there are also intensive vibration. So the man must have, that during the first flight of Mr. Yang Liwei, the vibration is even more intensive, and he even thinks that he will lose his life. So we optimized the flight procedure, and in the Shenzhou 6 mission experienced by Mr. Fei Jinlong, it is much more comfortable.
T-minus 5 minutes. We're waiting and watching, monitoring the liftoff of the Long March 2F carrier rocket, which will send 3 Chinese astronauts into space. This is the last manned mission before the construction of China's own space station, the Tiangong.
And the next step will be the switching of the control from the ground to the onboard computer. The onboard computer will be in charge of the whole launch vehicle. Next.
The nerve-wracking last few minutes until we see the ignition and then the liftoff of the carrier rocket. We'll be monitoring the whole 600 seconds, I believe, the initial 10 minutes after liftoff.
It's about 10 minutes. You see, that's during this process, Mr. Fei Jinlong is still reading the handbook. So he will be more and more familiar with the normal procedure and abnormal procedure.
That's the gentleman sitting in the middle. He's
Yes,
the commander of this mission, a veteran astronaut who flew his first manned flight 17 years ago, trained under China's first generation of astronauts. With him are his crew members. First manned flight for both of them.
Yes. And you may notice that just between the seats of astronauts, there are also several packages. Not only the packages for their mission, but also this to balance the position of the center of the mass of the re-entry capsule. It is also carefully designed.
The cargo you mentioned in orange, right? That's
Exactly.
In their return capsule.
Countdown in 3 minutes.
T-minus 3 minutes.
We also have cameras mounted on the rotational arms to monitoring the unplugging procedure to ensure the reliability. Still, at this moment, we believe that we still have cables connected to the launch vehicle.
Yeah, you can see the arms are still tightly around that carrier rocket. When will they be retracted?
And according to your colleagues, that the wind is not so very strong. So although it is in extremely low temperature, but the wind is not strong, so it is good for the launch.
Wind speed obviously is a much bigger factor than temperature.
Quite right. It is a quite serious problem to consider.
We are literally just minutes away from the liftoff of that Long March 2F carrier rocket, which will send 3 Chinese astronauts into space. Their previous mission, the Shenzhou 14 mission, the crew members are still inside the China space station. They will be working together in the space station for a period of 5 days. So it will be the first crew in-cabin, in-station handover between 2 different crews. A historic moment indeed, which we will bring to you here on CGTN.
There are 4 engines on the first stage. The 4 engines called YF-27. Each have a thrust more than 75 tons. And also there are similar engines for each booster. We have 1 engine. So during the liftoff, we have 8 engines. They will ignite simultaneously.
1 minute countdown.
T-minus 1 minute. Really, any moment now before we see the ignition of that carrier rocket.
And next, we will see the rotation of the arms away from the body of the rocket.
Yes,
Great,
the
unplug.
arms are moving now. They are being retracted to release the carrier rocket.
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1, ignition.
Three Chinese astronauts
Okay.
into space.
Pitch over.
Okay, the pitch over happening about 12 seconds into the flight.
The tunnel is already clear. We can see the white flames very bright in the night.
青山 CSB 雷达跟踪正常，遥控信号正常。
The ground station reports that the tracking is normal and the status is normal. Oh, this is the camera mounted on the launch vehicle.
We will continue to hear those tracking data that will tell us how the flight is going. We'll continue to hear them throughout the process.
So the next critical step will be the jettisoning of the emergency exit tower about 2 minutes after liftoff. At this moment, we can see that this is the video mounted on the body of the maybe the second stage, and we can see 2 of the boosters and their flames, and we can see the cabin inside the re-entry capsule, and the 3 astronauts are in very good status. We cannot see the vibration because the camera is vibrating together with the cabin.
So that's right. The 3 Taikonauts do seem to be in a good state.
And each of the booster have a rocket engine with a thrust about 75 tons. And when it is reached the supersonic status, it will experience the largest aerodynamic forces called the max Q. So at this moment, it will be supersonic and will be safer and safer. Oh, great! The jettisoning of the
主
emergency
权
escape
逃逸
tower.
塔分离。
The escape towers have come off. This is 2 minutes into the flight.
Exactly.
青
And
山
then
CSB
will be
雷达
separation
跟
of
踪
the
正
4
常，
boosters.
遥控信号正常。
We're monitoring to see the 4 boosters coming off.
双程光学雷达跟踪正常。
I mean, the taikonauts do seem to be doing fine, but this is the part where they feel a lot of discomfort, and as you can see, the
主人
boosters
助推几分离，
are
Great.
coming off.
You can see across of the 4
主
boosters.
权1、2几分离，
1、2几分离。
And the first stage has already been separated.
In the first stage of the carrier rocket,
And the second stage will work much longer than the first stage. It has one main engine. It is a vacuum version of the first stage engine. It is similar, but with a large nozzle.
遥测信号正常。
And also, the second stage have 4 vernier engines with smaller thrust, but they are rotatable. We can see on the left of screen is the camera mounted on the launch vehicle. This one is camera inside the payload fairing.
the taikonauts are flipping through their manuals again. They seem to be really fine.
Great,
Something else
the
is
payload
coming up.
fairing is separated.
That's the
双
payload
程方向
fairing.
爆炸。
The payload fairing is what protects the spacecraft.
Yes.
探员发现目标，
You can see the beautiful flames of the launch vehicle.
What do you make of the taikonauts at this
金
point?
山
I
DLD
mean,
跟
the
踪
fact
正
that they're
常，
flipping
遥
through
测
their
信号
manuals
正
seems to
常。
suggest they're doing
They are just
very well.
reading the parameters on the control panel and to judge
双
whether
程光
anything
学
goes
雷达
right.
跟踪正常。
The ground staff reports that the tracking is normal.
未来专机雷达跟踪正常。
What are we looking at now, Professor?
So
is
this
from-
is a video captured by the ground station.
探员雷达跟踪
It
正
is
常
an optical
遥测信号
camera.
正常
Okay. So the tracking units are, some of them are from stationary units, others are from ships that moved into position prior to the launch of the.
Exactly.
Mission.
So along the downrange trajectory, we have multiple ground stations, including those with the telescopes or optical telescopes to take videos like this. And also we have the readers. We have the readers to monitoring the. Oh, we can see on the left is the camera mounted on the rear part of the second stage. So it is monitoring the working of the rocket engines.
And the main engine of the second stage will shut down as we go further into the flight. Is that what's going to happen next?
Exactly. So I've already been discussed that the payload fairing has already been separated. So the next critical step will be shutdown of the main engine. But at this moment, theoretically speaking, it is already in orbit, but maybe not accurate enough. So we will use the 4 vernier engines, the 4 smaller
金
engines,
山
to
专机
adjust
跟踪
its
正常，
trajectory.
遥测信号正常。
So another ground station reports that the status is normal.
双程光学雷达跟踪正常。
The Shangcheng ground station reports that it is normal.
领导发现目标，未来专机雷达跟踪正
I mean,
常。
we've done
遥
this
测
so
信
many
号正常
times, but it just doesn't get less nervous for all of us watching on Earth here.
Yes, we just heard a voice that Qingdao has already captured the vehicle.
正常。
It is already close to Qingdao. And the separation of the spacecraft and the launch vehicle will be in the to the east of the China's sea coast.
I mean, Qingdao is on China's east coast. The carrier rocket lifted off from the northwest of China.
Yes.
In a few minutes' time, it moved from the northwest of China to the east coast of the country.
And before the end of the working of the rocket, the altitude will be about 200 kilometers.
Have they passed the period where they feel most discomfort now? I mean, for the taikonauts?
Exactly. You see that the most inconvenient part is during the flight of the first stage. Because you know that because of the aerodynamic forces, there are many intensive vibration. But at this moment, you know that they've already in a vacuum condition. The payload fairing has already separated.
金山 USB 跟踪正常。
Another ground station reports that the the USB and also the another
双
data
手
link
双血
is
雷
normal.
达跟踪正常。
I wonder what you're thinking right now, especially for Mr. Deng, who waited so long, over 2 decades for this time. It's finally happening, a dream come true for him.
太原雷达跟踪正常，遥测信号正常。
Great, main
The main
engine has
engine.
shut down.
Shutting down.
It's already in orbit, but maybe not accurate enough. So the 4 vernier engine will adjust its trajectory precisely.
Mm.
And we can see on the top right of the screen is the camera, an infrared camera taking the videos of the vehicle.
Mm.
听到 USB 雷达跟踪正常，遥测信号正常。
And if all things go well, we're looking at the separation of the spacecraft from the carrier rocket, which will happen any minute now.
You can see the 3 crew members are very relaxed now.
Smiles on their faces
Exactly.
as they have passed that most difficult period of time. A big relief, I would imagine, for all 3 of them.
As I emphasized, actually speaking, they've already in orbit.
But they're now adjusting
The accuracy.
the accuracy of the trajectory.
Yes. So the next step will be the shutdown of the 4 vernier engines.
As we mentioned, the main engine was shut down just a few moments ago.
That's the engine during the liftoff. The thrust is 75 tons. But that's the second stage, although it used the same type of engine, but it is a vacuum version. And the thrust is bigger because it is vacuum condition.
长江6发现目标。
Changjiang 6 means 远望 6 space tracking ship in the Pacific Ocean. So it is already gets the
They
data
have
link.
now identified the object.
Exactly.
Where is this camera? This is
This is a camera mounted on the top of the launch vehicle towards the spacecraft to the front.
主权团建分离。
okay. That is the successful separation of the spacecraft from the carrier rocket. You hear a round of applause from ground control because this is a critical step
Yes.
indicating
Yes.
initial success of the flight.
And what we see now is the 3D animation in the flight control center. We should emphasize that this 3D animation is driven by the real data received from the telemetry data.
So it's a real-time update, 3D animation
Quite right.
indicating
The position, the velocity, the attitude of the vehicle is the real status.
right.
长江6号光谱完成。长江6号
And
光
I
谱
should
完成。
also emphasize they're already in zero
Is that a
gravity.
pen floating around in the
Yes.
capsule?
Quite right. But we China usually we don't have the tradition to have a zero G indicator. Usually our astronauts use their pen to demonstrate this zero G.
We're now 6 minutes into the flight, and the separation of the spacecraft from the carrier rocket has happened, indicating initial success of the flight.
Let's remember this moment. Just now with the separation of the second stage, with China, we've already have 6 astronauts in orbit.
6 astronauts in orbit now. They will meet and greet in just a handful of hours. We will bring you special coverage on that as well. One thing to be sure is that the Shenzhou 15 crew will be very warmly welcomed by their Shenzhou 14 colleagues.
长江6号跟踪正常，遥测信号正常。
We heard the voice of the Yuanwang 6 or the Changjiang 6, the space tracking ship. The tracking is normal. And the next step will be the unfolding of the solar panels mounted on the propulsion module. The Shenzhou spaceship adopted a 3-module design. On the rear part is the propulsion module, which has 2 solar
发
wings.
射开指令发出。
The Beijing Flight Control Center has sent the command to unfolding the panel.
遥测信号正常。 天路跟踪正常。
天路 means 天链 data relay satellite.
It takes a minute between the sending of the command and then the opening of the panels.
Yes. Great.
The solar panel has unfolded and opened, prompting another applause from nervous ground staff watching every step of the flight.
应该收到。中科。收到。
I mean, this is another crucial step indicating that things have gone well. And would you say that the spaceship is now pretty much in orbit, or is it still adjusting?
It's already in a right orbit. The next step, we will, based on the telemetry data, we will measure or determine the orbit and evaluate each parameter to evaluate whether to judge it is accurate enough. And only when it is accurate enough can be announced that it is a successful launch. Because that's the purpose of this launch, this spacecraft is to rendezvous and dock with the Tiangong space station. So the orbit must be accurate enough.
Professor, remind us again how much time it will take before the docking and rendezvous happens.
Well, it depends on the arrangement of the plan. That just several days before we conducted the Tianzhou 5 mission, and it only used 2 hours.
2 hours.
Yes, that makes the world record.
That was unmanned cargo spacecraft. This is different.
But the technology is similar.
But it can't be done in 2 hours.
Yes. But maybe not necessary. That the 6 hours is already short enough. So it depends on the arrangement.
雷州15号，我是北京。
We're now, of course, waiting to hear from official announcement from ground command and control to see whether the launch and flight so far has been a success. There will be an official announcement. We're waiting for that to happen as well.
雷州15号报告，飞船座舱大气环境正常，航天员感知良好，完毕。
They are feeling well.
北京礼拜。
The Taikonauts have just told ground control that they're feeling well, and they've been told that they can open
雷州15号明白。
the face windows. Is that what's going to happen?
It depends on their, that they will check every status of the spacecraft, and they will, as you mentioned, they will open their face window of their helmet sooner or later.
Let's see if we can get a visual on them.
天路跟踪正常。
They've already done that, right?
Great. Because the most dangerous part has already been passed.
Wonderful. That's always good to know.
As we've already discussed, the IVA spacesuit they were wearing is to protect them.
长江6号跟踪正常，遥测信号正常。长江6号跟踪正常。
Changjiang 6号 means Yuanwang 6 space tracking ship.
Yeah, that's the flight time on your screen right now, 956 seconds into the flight. The latest critical step has been the opening of the solar panels.
So next, the Shenzhou 15 spacecraft will conduct a rendezvous, maybe several orbit maneuvers to meet with the Tiangong space station.
Is it possible for the Shenzhou 14 crew to watch this happen from the space station? Is it technologically possible?
Technically speaking, it is possible, but it also depends on the plan. You know that, as we've already discussed, if the rendezvous, time interval is short enough, they can see the launch. This already has happened in the International Space Station. You may watch it on the social media. The video taken by the astronauts on board the ISS of the launch of the Soyuz spacecraft or the progress.
根据北京实时轨道与遥测数据监视判断，神舟15号飞船已进入近地点高度200公里，远地点高度361.9公里，倾角41.3度，周期 1小时30分钟的预定轨道，飞船座舱环境正常，航天员状态良好。北京各纬分数及分离点参数已向各方向发出。东风，
东方收到，
华山，
华山收到，
江阴，江阴收到。长江6号，
长江6号收到。
Ground control has just reported that things are going well with the flight. The taikonauts are doing fine in their cabin, in their capsule. All indicators point to a successful launch and a successful flight.
The flight control center, the commander reported the orbital parameters of the Shenzhou 15 spacecraft. You may notice that the perigee or the lowest altitude is 200 kilometers, but the highest point or the apogee is 361 kilometers, lower than our Tiangong space station. This is because you know that the
天空正常。
Shenzhou 15 is a chasing vehicle. It should be lower than the target. With lower orbit, it rotates faster. So it is chasing the Tiangong space station closer and closer.
If only we could see that process as well. That would be fascinating to watch.
Exactly. And just now, the Tianlu or the Tianlian data relay satellite just reports the data link is normal. So we can have a continuous coverage establishing the data link between the Shenzhou 15 spacecraft with the ground stations. And on the front of the 3D animation, just at the front of our orbital module, you may notice that there is a docking mechanism. This is called the APAS, or the Androgynous Peripheral Attach System. And other countries also adopt this system.
This is the port that will be docking with
Exactly.
the Tiangong.
Yes. So in the future, if we want to have some international cooperation of higher level, I mean the visit of the foreign spacecraft, either a cruise spaceship or a cargo spaceship, technically speaking, it is also possible.
So it's compatible. Like it's potentially compatible. with-
Potentially possible. There are many technical details.
遥视信号正常。天路跟踪
I was going to ask you about. Yeah, I was going to ask about international cooperation because with the International Space Station, we've seen very close and lasting cooperation between astronauts from different countries. China hasn't ruled out that possibility. What does international cooperation on China's own space station look like for you, Professor?
According to the announcement of China Manned Space Agency, the 9 experiments raised by 17 countries, they've already been chosen, and the devices and also other equipments for these kind of experiments has already been made by other countries. And next year, our crew on board our Tiangong space station will conducting these experiments. So this is the first cooperation with other countries of Tiangong space station. And these experiments were chosen by the China Manned Agency and UNOOSA, or United Nations Office for Outer Space Affairs. So this is the start of our